Cold night air bites their skin as Harper pulls her little brother closer. Their stomachs ache, yet silence fills the room, broken only by the flickering streetlight. She leans in, voice trembling but fierce. "One day, Liam. One day we'll eat until hunger never finds us again." Harper wasn't just a sister. She was Liam's shield against a world that had already written them off. Fragile in body but fierce in spirit, she carried a fire inside her that hunger could never dim. Liam, younger and wide-eyed, looked at her as if she held the map to a better tomorrow. When their stomachs growled, they turned it into a game, teasing each other, laughing until the ache softened. Harper would nudge him and say, "You eat louder than the street dogs," and Liam would giggle, pretending to chew air. Beneath the laughter, though, both knew the truth. Their bond was the only thing keeping them alive. Every day was survival. Every night was a quiet promise between them. They weren't just siblings, they were soldiers of the same war, clinging to hope when the world offered none. Together, they dreamed beyond hunger. The streets became their shelter, a cruel teacher that never showed mercy. Harper and Liam wandered from one abandoned house to another, chasing corners where the wind couldn't reach them. The walls around them were cracked, floors covered in dust, but to them, it was still safer than the night. Blankets were never theirs. Sometimes an old cloth tossed aside by strangers, sometimes cardboard flattened against the cold ground. They learned to hug each other tighter when the air turned sharp. Dinner wasn't always food. More often it was water, gulped down until their empty stomachs felt fooled, at least for a while. But poverty wasn't just about hunger. It was the sting of being invisible. People passed them daily, eyes shifting away, as if two children without shoes were too shameful to acknowledge. Every ignored glance reminded Harper of one truth: the world didn't care if they made it. Yet inside her chest, defiance grew stronger. At school, Harper's hunger wasn't the only thing that set her apart. Her clothes were faded, her shoes worn thin, but her eyes carried something rare, a vision that refused to die. One afternoon, when the teacher asked about future dreams, Harper stood tall despite the gnawing in her stomach. "I'll be rich one day," she declared, her voice steady, her chin lifted. The room exploded in laughter. Children pointed, mocking her words like they were the biggest joke of the year. Even the teacher shook her head, smirking. "Harper, you should be realistic. Some dreams aren't meant for everyone." The words cut deeper than hunger ever had, carving themselves into her memory. But while the world laughed, Liam didn't. Sitting at the back, his small hands clapped louder than anyone else. His grin was wide, his eyes filled with pride, as if Harper had already made it. That single clap was worth more than all the ridicule. In that moment, Harper realized something. The world may mock her dreams, but Liam believed in them. And for her, his belief was fuel. It was the spark that kept her from breaking under their laughter. The laughter of classmates faded, but the real battles began outside the school gates. Harper tried everything, sweeping dusty shop floors, carrying boxes twice her size, begging for small errands. But every door closed before she could even finish a sentence. Shopkeepers waved her away. Neighbors whispered behind her back, their voices dripping with pity. "Those kids won't make it." Each rejection cut deeper than hunger. It wasn't just about money anymore. It was about dignity, about being seen. One evening, Harper sat on a cracked doorstep, her shoulders heavy, her voice breaking. "Maybe they're right, Liam. Maybe we'll always be nothing." Liam didn't flinch. He grabbed her hand, his eyes shining with a faith stronger than her doubts. "No, one day you'll build something, and I'll be your first customer." The promise was small, almost childish, yet it pierced through her despair like light through darkness. Harper realized she was fighting for more than herself. She was fighting for Liam, for the boy who believed in her when no one else dared, and with that, hunger turned into fuel. Rejection became fire. The world had closed its doors, but Liam's words opened one she could never let shut. That night, Harper and Liam huddled in the corner of a crumbling building they didn't own, trying to silence their growling stomachs. From the next room, voices drifted through the broken walls. The landlord laughing loudly, bragging about the rent he collected, His words cut sharper than the cold. "Poor families will always pay. Hunger keeps them desperate," he sneered. Harper froze, anger boiling beneath her skin. Hunger she could endure, but being mocked for it ignited something deeper. She glanced at Liam, asleep against her shoulder, unaware of the insult hurled at their existence. In that moment, the fire inside her shifted. If this man could profit from roofs and walls, why couldn't she? Why couldn't she turn survival into something bigger? It wasn't just about eating anymore. It was about taking back power. That night, Harper's dream changed shape, from hope into strategy. The very next week, Harper acted on the fire that had been lit inside her. With a handful of borrowed coins, she made a bold choice, not to beg, not to wait, but to build. She found an abandoned house, broken windows, dust thick on every corner, and decided it could become something more. Armed with nothing but a rag, a bucket, and her brother's eager hands, Harper began scrubbing floors until her knuckles ached. Liam worked beside her, his laughter echoing through the hollow rooms as he swept away cobwebs bigger than his arms. Together, they transformed ruins into something livable. Soon, neighbors who once mocked them were now curious. Families without. Homes found Harper's place affordable, clean, and filled with care. It wasn't just business. It was survival turned into opportunity. That little house wasn't just shelter for others. It became the foundation of Harper and Liam's first company, built not on money, but on trust and grit. Days blurred into nights, and Harper refused to rest. By sunlight, she walked the streets with a confidence she didn't always feel, knocking on doors, convincing tenants, bargaining with landlords who looked down on her. Every no felt like a bruise, but she learned to smile through the sting. When night came, she didn't stop. In their tiny corner, lit by a single flickering bulb, Harper hunched over borrowed books, tracing each line of contracts with her finger until the words began to make sense. Paper scraps became her teachers, silence her classroom. Beside her, Liam added his own magic. With pencils so small they barely fit his hand, he sketched logos, drew posters, and scribbled signs that read, "Clean homes, fair rent." Sometimes he giggled, showing Harper crooked letters, and she'd smile, because even their mistakes looked like progress. Hunger was still a guest at their table. Their stomachs growled, their bodies ached, but something stronger had moved, in hope. For the first time, the nights didn't feel endless. They felt like steps toward a future where hunger would be nothing but a memory. Together, they built not just a business, but a dream taking shape in the dark. One afternoon, Harper stood in the doorway of a small property she had cleaned herself, her palms raw from scrubbing. A tenant had come to see the place, not just anyone, but a man with wealth in his stride and sharp eyes that missed nothing. He walked through slowly, running his hand along the freshly painted wall, the neatly swept floor. Harper braced herself for rejection, ready to hear that her efforts weren't enough. But instead, the man turned back with a surprising softness. "You did all this yourself?" he asked. She nodded, her voice steady but humble. "Yes, sir. Honesty is all I have." The words hung in the air. For a moment, Harper thought he would laugh, just like the others always had. Instead, he smiled faintly. "Then maybe honesty is worth more than you think. I have a bigger property. Let's see what you can do with that." Her breath caught. It wasn't money opening this door, it was trust. For the first time, someone believed in her work, not her circumstances. When she told Liam, his cheer filled the empty room with warmth. This was their first true breakthrough, proof that grit and honesty could create opportunities hunger never could. Success had begun to bloom, but shadows weren't far behind. The friend Harper trusted with her accounts smiled in her face by day and stole from her by night. One by one, clients disappeared. Their savings, the little nest she and Liam had scraped together, was gone. When Harper discovered the truth, her knees buckled. She sank to the cold floor of an empty room, the silence heavier than any hunger she had ever known. Tears slipped through her fingers as she whispered, broken. Maybe they were right. Maybe we were never meant to make it. But Liam didn't let go. He knelt beside her, sliding his small hand into hers, steady and unshaken. His voice cut through the darkness. "No, they were wrong. You've come too far to quit now, and I'm not letting you." In that moment, Harper understood. Money could be stolen, clients could be tricked, but faith like Liam's could never be taken. That was her true wealth. When hope seemed on the edge of breaking, Liam made a choice that Harper never saw coming. He walked into their room carrying his only treasure, an old, scratched guitar he had strummed on since childhood. Music was his escape, the one thing untouched by hunger or struggle. Quietly he sold it. The little money he earned wasn't much, but it was everything he had. With trembling hands, he placed the coins into Harper's palm. "This is for you." "One last chance," he whispered. Harper's eyes filled instantly. That guitar wasn't just wood and strings. It was Liam's heart, his joy. To give it up meant he believed in her more than himself. Through tears, she gripped his hands and swore, "I'll never waste this. I'll turn it into something greater." In that moment, Harper's resolve hardened. Liam's sacrifice wasn't just support, it was a crown placed on her determination. Liam's sacrifice became the seed Harper refused to let die. With renewed fire, she turned every setback into a stepping stone. One house became two, two became 10. Soon her name spread, not as the girl mocked for her dreams, but as the woman who turned ruins into homes. Years of grit carved her into a force the city couldn't ignore. Hotels rose under her vision. Rentals filled with families who trusted her fairness. Luxury homes that carried her signature touch of dignity. She no longer begged for doors to open, she built her own. And through it all, Liam walked beside her. Not hidden, not forgotten, but as the heartbeat of her empire. Where others saw Harper's crown, she saw his spark. The boy who clapped for her when the world laughed. The brother who gave up his only guitar so she could rise. Together, they weren't just survivors anymore. They were royalty born from hunger. Silk dresses and shining limousines became Harper's new reality, but the echoes of her past never left. Flashing cameras greeted her at hotel openings, reporters praised her brilliance, and wealthy partners shook her hand with respect. Yet behind the glamour, Harper still carried the memory of cracked walls, empty plates, and whispered promises in the dark. At grand feasts, where golden platters overflowed with food she once only dreamed of, Harper never lifted her fork first. Instead, she turned to Liam. With a soft smile, she nudged the plate toward him. "You eat first," she'd say, the same words she had once whispered on nights when water was their only dinner. For Liam, it was habit now, but for Harper, it was sacred. That simple act kept her grounded, reminding her that every luxury they enjoyed was born from hunger and sacrifice. To the world, she was a queen in silk. To herself, she was still the girl who made a promise under a flickering streetlight, and kept it. Her empire wasn't built on wealth alone, but on loyalty, love, and a bond no struggle could break. And every feast was proof that they had truly won. Harper's story doesn't shine because of wealth, silk, or limousines. It shines because of a promise, a fragile vow made between two hungry children huddled on a cold floor. They had nothing, yet they believed in each other when the world refused to. That belief became the foundation of everything that followed. Her empire isn't just made of bricks, hotels, and keys. It's made of nights without food, of laughter, used to hide pain, of betrayal that nearly broke her, and of a brother who never stopped clapping for her dreams. It's proof that success isn't built on luck. It's built on faith, sacrifice, and the refusal to give up when every door slams shut. And now, it's your turn. Maybe your struggle looks different. Maybe it's hunger, rejection, or a dream no one believes in. But remember this. The same fire that carried Harper can live in you. Your setback could be your spark. Your pain could be your power. So don't quit. Don't believe the laughter, because your story is still being written. Subscribe, because your rise doesn't start tomorrow. It starts right now.